So today I'd like to talk to you about something really special, and this is this terrarium display that I have in my family room. It's something that I can look at all the time, and it's something I'm also completely obsessed with. It also holds two plants that you have not seen before, which I'm actually excited to show off. So before I get into the plants, I want to talk about the display a little bit. So if you notice to the left, there is this tank, which is actually my humidifier. It's not something that I use often unless I want a little bit of boost of humidity, or I just kind of want to show off how my plants look, because honestly, the fog effect looks amazing. So I'll show you that really quickly. So I just turned it on and it's on the highest setting. So the terrarium is going to completely fill with really high humidity very fast on this setting, which is why I don't keep it at this. Right now my fan is off just so you can see how much actually gets in there. It's an insane amount and it'll just be completely covered with fog. But it's something, if you wanted to really boost your humidity in this terrarium setting, that is really easy to do with that. So one of the reasons you'd want to do that is because I do have a fan in there, and always having a fan in a terrarium is going to lower that humidity level. So if you want it higher, then I do suggest something along like this mist maker I have over here. I'll put everything that I'm talking about in my description link if you're curious about it. And let me just show you really quickly. So I always find this cool, but like when you open it, this little dramatic effect of fog coming out. And I've gone ahead and just turned that off for now, just so we can get a look at what's going on inside the terrarium without that fog in the way. So the second thing I have in this setup is a heat mat. The heat mat is something that the terrarium sits directly on. And the reason I have it is because the heat mat is always going to benefit your plants, especially if you're looking to boost your humidity levels. It's something when you have higher heat, you allow yourself to also have higher humidity because you're going to have drier air in that type of setting. And if you have really low temperatures but high humidity, what's going to happen is you're going to reach the saturation point in the air that's going to make it really hard for your plants to breathe, which is why a fan is so critical in these environments, and also proper humidity maintaining. So actually I only on the regular keep these guys between 60 and 70% humidity. They don't need more than that. But if I wanted to do more than that, what I would have to do is also raise the temperature and turn on the fan on a higher setting so that the water buildup on the plants has a chance to dry off. So I want to talk about that particular problem and this plant right here. So what happened here was I actually had an issue with my fan where the red plug that's attached to the fan came off and it stopped running. What happened was the humidity became around 90% and my fan wasn't running, and this happened all night the other night. So what happened was the plant couldn't breathe, it built up a lot of moisture on the leaves, and unfortunately when it comes to variegated plants, the first thing to go is always the variegated parts. So if you notice this leaf right here, and this chunk right here, and then a few bottom leaves actually had a lot of browning and wet spots on them, and I ended up chopping them off because I didn't want any kind of bacteria to spread. So unfortunately in these types of scenarios, if you want high humidity, you're gonna always have to balance it because it's something that can harm your plant if you don't consider all the factors that go into your terrarium. So luckily she's completely fine. She's very vigorous. And also, I have actually an example of a leaf that has a little bit of that browning left. So if you look right here on the variegated parts, you can see that browning portion, and that's a part that became vulnerable on the plant when that happened. So if you look inside this plant here, you can see she has some pups inside as well. So you have these little leaves down here. And this leaf right here is also another pup that is growing out of this plant. So I always have at least 3 leaves growing at once now, which is pretty amazing. So on the screen right now, I'm going to show you a picture. And this was Rowena back at the end of July, beginning of August. You can see how tiny and small she was. So what I will say for these variegated Adansonii is that they are extremely fast growing. So buying them small is in no way a detriment or something that you're gonna have to wait a long time for you to get a big plant, because she's already so big. And guys, I have chopped off a good amount of leaves, whether it was due to things like I didn't give her enough light in the beginning or things like that, lessons I've learned. I will eventually be doing a care guide on these because there's some very specific care things that I found for these guys in particular. I found these are really fun to grow and really pretty, and I always recommend buying them very small because with their price point, it's just kind of something that it's very difficult to purchase. In contradiction to Rowena, I have over here Ghost. Ghost is actually a recent acquisition in my collection. I only got her about a week or two ago. I bought her with 8 or 9 leaves and 11 nodes. And what I did was I traded 2 plants and then paid some money for her. So I didn't pay the extreme amount you normally would for a plant of this size, but I got one that's really amazing. So the reason I purchased Ghost here was because Rowena, if you take a look, has almost no internodal spacing. She is very stacked inside of there, and there's pretty much really difficult chance or time if I want to go propagate her. And when you buy a plant like this, propagation is something that you're gonna think about because you kind of want to return for the money you have spent. That way it doesn't feel as bad because if you get a return investment on these plants, it's almost like you didn't have to buy them at all. So you end up with a really amazing plant and one that you basically had to spend no money on and have profited on in the long run. So the reason I bought Ghost is she doesn't have that issue. So if you look at Ghost, she has really great internodal spacing here. She is perfect for propagation, and her variegation levels are really, really beautiful. She has more white than some people would like. This side of the plant certainly grows more white, this side more variegated and like a good mix. So when I go to propagate her, I will want to make sure the auxiliary buds on this side aren't ones that I will be growing plants from. I want to make sure that I cut in a spot where I get enough green. But she's already really set. I know it's hard to see right now, but she also has a lot of aerial roots. So whenever I'm ready to propagate, she will be there waiting. So that's something that I've been having a difficult time trying to reconcile how I was going to propagate Rowena. I've repotted her a couple times, and each time I've looked at her spacing and just declared it was way too difficult to cut her. And honestly, I love Rowena so much that the prospect of it is just really difficult for me at the moment. So this plant here, while I love Ghost, I do plan to make more of her. So it'll be nice because I'll get more plants out of it, more mother plants as well, and then I'll also be able to sell cuttings to get that return investment and feel a ton better about owning these plants. The good thing was I did initially lower the price by trading plants for her, and for Rowena I got her really tiny, so she also wasn't as expensive as how she would cost right now, which is honestly crazy. They grow at an insane rate. But I absolutely love both of these, and having them in my family room is really nice because it also makes me feel better about owning a plant if I can see it all the time and I have like a really great display for it. So it's something that will always be there, always can look at it, and they're honestly just really pretty. For a long time, I didn't show Rowena at all because I felt so self-conscious about just like owning a variegated Adansonii. So I felt bad about showing her off because I didn't want to kind of flaunt what I had, but I did want you guys to finally see these guys and see how awesome and cute they are and amazing. And hopefully the price eventually drops for these. That way they're on a more affordable level. But before we get more into that, I just want to talk about a few things. So with the heat mat that they're both on, I normally keep it at around 78. Because the terrarium here is so thick, it doesn't always heat it up that well. So it probably gets around 75 in there, which is still fine. So up here I have these Millen grow lights, and I really like these because they also give off a good amount of far red on the grow light spectrum. And if you don't know what far red is, it's a light that the plants receive in the understory of the canopies in the tropical rainforests. Now, this isn't something you want to expose your plants to constantly. They also cause this syndrome in your plants to think that they're not getting any sunlight, which is why they receive them in nature. So what happens in far red is you'll get really crazy cell expansion. You'll get large leaves, but you also get extremely leggy plants, so you have to do it in moderation. Now, what I like about these bulbs is that they have a little bit in there, so it's enough for my plants, but not enough that I don't have to feel freaked out by it. I have 2 bulbs because I've noticed Variegated Adansonii crave more light than any other plant I've ever had. If you just had a different kind of plant in here that was okay with lower light levels, 2 lights would not be needed. So they're on my light stand here, which is really nice. It sits below the terrarium, so it's very stable, and you can actually make it taller or longer this way. So that's why I was able to attach 2 lights onto there. The cables I will also have in my description. But yeah, so it's just kind of a nice little fun setup. I also have this little mister here. It's a continuous mister. I don't know if you could see the mist, but it's something that looks classy and that I can wet the moss in that my plants have around them. And also, if you look inside, you'll notice at the bottom here, I have vermiculite. So the reason I didn't use sphagnum moss is because sphagnum moss can smell really bad, especially in a terrarium setting and when you have a fan running constantly. So yeah, that wasn't gonna do. It's not a pleasant set. It's not something I wanted in my family room. So we chose vermiculite, which is pretty neutral and it holds a lot of moisture as well. So what I do is I spray this bed and it keeps it around 60% humidity in here without me running the humidifier over here. So then I want to talk about this fan really quickly. I know it's a little difficult to see, but it's something that I just kind of stuck on top of my terrarium. And what it does, it just blows air down, and it's a waterproof fan by House of Hydro. I really love their fans because of that particular quality they have in them. It's difficult to find a good waterproof fan. Like I said, I have that wire issue, but I just need to tape it. I don't know if it's just my model or maybe I pulled something out that I wasn't supposed to, but that happened. In the back here, we have my humidistat. So the temperature is reading a little lower because I have the terrarium open, but like I said, it usually sits around about 75. And it's currently reading 65%, which is a good reading in my opinion. So I hope I didn't talk too much, but I was excited to keep talking to you about this, but I started kind of delving into topics that I want to talk about later with you guys. I actually have a cat bed right under there. I have, my cat Phil loves to sleep there. But thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were interested in seeing these 2 plants. If you're interested in a care guide, let me know down below. I just don't know how well a video like that would do. But I feel like I do have some really good tips to offer about these guys if you ever do consider. So just let me know. And thank you so much for watching.